Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. My daughter sat at the edge of the couch, legs swinging, eyes full of hope. All around her, cousins tore open wrapping paper, shouting with joy, laughing, showing off their gifts. One held up a glittery pink tablet. Another jumped up and down with a remote-control drone. The room was buzzing with excitement, and Maya just watched, waiting for her turn. She was smiling, patient, trusting, because in her world, grandmas love their grandkids, and presents come in pretty bows with your name on them. I kept looking for her name on a tag in a bag under the tree. It had to be there. When the last gift was handed out and she was still sitting there empty-handed, she looked up at me with a quiet whisper. "Did Grandma forget me?" I turned to Margot and asked gently, "Was there another one? Maybe it got missed." She didn't even hesitate. "She's not really family," she said just like that.
No e palegi, nos cham.
Her voice was sharp and clear, like she was stating the weather. "She's adopted. It's not the same." Maya heard every word. She didn't cry, not right away. She just nodded as if that explained everything. Then she looked down at her hands and folded them in her lap, like she was trying to take up less space. I felt like someone had knocked the wind out of me. My mouth opened, but nothing came out. I wanted to protect her, to say something, anything. But I was frozen. And the worst part? No one else said anything either. Cousins glanced at each other. My sister-in-law looked away. Caleb sat beside me, jaw clenched, eyes locked on his mother. But even he didn't speak. We stayed for dinner. We went through the motions. Maya never brought it up again. That night, back at the guest room, Caleb opened the drawer of his suitcase and pulled out a manila folder. He looked at me and said, "I brought it in case she did something like this. I was hoping I wouldn't need it." He left the house alone just after midnight with that folder in his hand. I didn't ask what was inside. I didn't have to. Whatever he said to her, whatever she read in that envelope, she didn't laugh the next morning. And she never called Maya not family again. This happened last Christmas. It was supposed to be one of those big family gatherings where everything looks picture perfect. Fireplace crackling, matching pajamas, cider on the stove, kids running around the house like it's a playground. Margot, my mother-in-law, goes all out. She has this Pinterest board kind of holiday style. She's the type who sets out cloth napkins folded into trees and names each cheese on the platter with a little chalkboard stick. She's also the type of woman who believes in how things should be. I've been married to her son Caleb for 10 years. We met in college, and from day one he was this calm, thoughtful, quietly intense kind of guy. He's never been the loudest person in the room, but he's always been the one who listens the closest. He's the one who knows what you need before you say it. When I fell in love with him, I fell in love with the idea of building a family with someone who actually understood what love was supposed to look like. It wasn't easy for us. We struggled to have kids for years. For miscarriages, 2 failed IVF cycles, a lot of late nights just holding each other in the dark, not saying anything because there was nothing left to say. Eventually, we started talking about adoption. It wasn't our plan B. It became our best decision. We found Maya through a local agency. She was 5 when we met her. I still remember the first time she held my hand. She didn't say a word. She just slipped her tiny fingers into mine while we walked through the park. And I knew this was it. This was my daughter. Maya is light in every room she walks into. She loves painting, especially animals. She names the squirrels in our backyard. She laughs at her own jokes even when nobody else gets them. She's gentle, kind, and so deeply thoughtful it hurts sometimes. From the day she came home, Caleb was dad. Not stepdad, not foster dad, just dad. She started calling me mom on her own one night while I was brushing her hair. I didn't even correct her, I just cried. We never treated her like she was anything but ours. But that doesn't mean everyone else followed suit. Margot was polite when we introduced Maya. Cold but polite. She didn't say anything cruel, not at first. But she never really saw her. She didn't learn her favorite colors. She didn't ask her questions. She didn't make the same effort she did with our nieces and nephews. Still, I told myself she'd come around. I wanted to believe she just needed time. Caleb was more cautious. He knew his mother better than I did, and he didn't expect much. But he gave her the benefit of the doubt for Maya's sake. So when Margot invited the whole family to her house for Christmas that year, we accepted. We packed up the car, loaded presents and snacks, and drove 6 hours to North Carolina. Maya was buzzing with excitement. She made cards for every cousin. She couldn't wait to see the big tree Margot always put up in the foyer. She even brought her favorite dress because she wanted to look grown up. I remember looking at her in the back seat, singing along to Christmas music, holding her teddy bear. And I remember thinking, this year will be different. This year she'll feel it. She'll feel like she belongs. The house was full of noise and warmth when we arrived. Siblings, cousins, pets. Maya ran straight into the chaos like she was home. I saw her hug Margot. I saw Margot pat her on the head like she would a neighbor's kid. Not unkind but distant. Still I smiled. I held on to hope. Maybe it was just awkwardness. Maybe love doesn't come naturally for everyone. But that doesn't mean it won't come eventually. I helped with dinner. Caleb played with the kids. Maya helped pass out cookies shaped like reindeer. Everything looked right. Everything felt almost normal until the next morning, until the gifts, until my daughter sat in a circle of children opening presents, watching them unwrap joy while her own hands stayed empty. And everything I had been hoping for shattered right in front of me. We'd finished breakfast and all the kids were buzzing because it was gift time at Margot's house. That wasn't just a thing, it was the thing. She made a whole event of it. She stacked the presents under the 12-foot tree in color-coded wrapping paper, had the kids sit in a circle, and passed out the gifts one by one while everyone watched. Maya was practically bouncing with excitement. She kept looking toward the tree, then back at me whispering, "I think mine's the purple one with the snowman on it." I smiled and nodded, even though I hadn't seen her name on any of the tags. I tried to ignore that gnawing feeling in my chest. Maybe hers was hidden behind the tree. Maybe it was still in the guest room closet. Maybe Margot was saving it for last. The gifts started flying open. Squeals, giggles, everyone holding up new toys, gadgets, glittery jackets. Maya clapped for each cousin like it was their birthday. Then the pile under the tree started shrinking fast. 5 kids, 10 gifts, then 3 kids, 2 gifts, 1. None with Maya's name. And she noticed. She turned to me with a soft voice. "Did Grandma forget mine?" I looked around pretending to search. "Maybe it's still under there," I said. That's when I stood up and asked Margot directly, "Hey, is there one for Maya that didn't make it out here?" Margot didn't look surprised. She looked annoyed, like I was making a scene, like I had broken some unspoken rule by asking. She looked right at Maya and said, "She's not really family." I didn't think it was appropriate. Silence. Not shocked silence. Complicit silence. One of the cousins started fiddling with their ribbon. My sister-in-law cleared her throat and busied herself with the trash bag for wrapping paper. No one looked at me. No one looked at Maya. I looked down at my daughter. Her face didn't crumble. She didn't cry. She just blinked slowly, like she was trying to figure out what she did wrong. And then, God, it was the way she nodded, just a quiet, almost imperceptible nod, like she understood something she shouldn't have to understand. I knelt beside her. My hands were shaking, but I tried to keep my voice steady. "You did nothing wrong," I whispered. She nodded again, forced a smile. "It's okay, Mommy. Maybe next year." I don't know how I didn't break right there. Caleb sat stone still, jaw clenched, staring straight ahead. Like if he moved, he'd explode. I kept waiting for anyone to speak up, to say, "Margot, that's cruel," or "Maya is family," or even just, "That's not okay." But they didn't. And I was so angry. Not just at Margot but at every single adult in that room who chose comfort over courage. I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab Maya and leave. But I didn't. I stayed seated, paralyzed by the moment, trying to weigh damage control with dignity. What would it do to Maya to see me lose? What would it do to Caleb if I went head-to-head with his mother in front of the whole family? So I stayed silent, and in doing so, I felt like I'd betrayed my own daughter. Later, when the room started to move on, when the kids were distracted again and the adults returned to sipping coffee and scrolling their phones, I watched Maya disappear quietly into the corner, curling up with her teddy bear, her shoulders tense, her eyes on the floor. She didn't speak for the rest of the morning. She didn't ask for a gift. She didn't ask why. She just kept that fake little smile on her face. And every time someone looked her way, she made sure she looked fine. But I wasn't. That moment burned something into me. A cold, deep fury I couldn't shake. I didn't know it yet, but Caleb had already decided what he was going to do. He'd seen enough, and he wasn't going to let that silence stand for another day. That night the house was quiet. Too quiet. After the last dish was washed, after the wine was poured, after the polite goodnights and awkward hugs, we went back to the guest room and shut the door. Maya was already in her pajamas, curled up in bed with her stuffed fox, the one she brought everywhere. She didn't ask for a bedtime story. She didn't ask to call Santa. She just laid there staring at the ceiling. I sat beside her and rubbed her back until her breathing slowed. "Mom," she whispered. "Yeah, baby? Do you think maybe she didn't know I was coming?" I swallowed hard.
No, sweetheart.
She knew. Oh. A pause. Maybe she just doesn't know me yet. I bit my lips so hard I tasted blood. "That might be it," I said. "But none of this is your fault. Do you hear me?" She nodded and turned her face into the pillow. When I stood up, Caleb was standing in the doorway holding something in his hand. He didn't say anything at first, just looked at our daughter, looked at me, then looked down at the envelope. "I'm done," he said quietly. "I've let my mom say a lot of things over the years. I let it slide because it was easier. But not this. Not with Maya." I stood frozen. I had never seen him like that before. He wasn't yelling. He wasn't shaking. He was just steady. "Final?" I asked. He handed it to me, a manila folder. Inside was a notarized legal document, an updated will, trust designation, and formal record of Maya's adoption. "She's not just our daughter by heart," he said. "She's our daughter on every legal document. I added her to everything: the house, the savings, the insurance, the family trust, everything. She's my daughter in every way the law recognizes." I stared at him. "You did all this?" "I started the paperwork months ago. I wanted to make it official in every possible way. I just didn't tell anyone. I figured if my mom ever crossed a line, I'd have what I needed." I felt my knees go weak. "So what are you going to do with it?" He looked at the clock. Midnight. He grabbed his coat. "I'm going to show her exactly who Maya is." I didn't try to stop him. I didn't tell him to calm down. I just nodded and sat down on the bed, listening to the front door creak open and then close behind him. I don't know what she thought when he showed up unannounced. I don't know if she expected a lecture or an argument, but I do know she didn't expect the folder. He walked into her house, his childhood home, and sat at the kitchen table across from her. "I'm not here to yell," he told her. "I'm not even here to ask for an apology. I'm here to give you a choice." He slid the folder across the table. She opened it. He watched her face as she read. He told her, "This is Maya's name in every legal place that matters. If you want to keep pretending she's not family, that's your choice. But if that's your choice, then I'm not your son anymore. Because I won't raise my daughter in a family that treats her like a guest." She tried to interrupt, but he didn't let her. He told her about the way Maya clapped for her cousins, about how she hugged her and called her grandma, about how she went to sleep wondering what she did wrong. Then he said, "You've got one shot to fix this one because next Christmas will be somewhere else." And then he stood up and left. Back in our room, he didn't say much. He just laid down beside me and took my hand. I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling just like Maya had, thinking about how many times I'd kept the peace at the expense of my child. But something changed that night. Something shifted in both of us. We weren't going to let silence protect cruelty anymore. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like we were on the same page. Not just as husband and wife, but as parents, the kind who show up when it matters. The next morning, something felt different. The house was quiet, but not in that peaceful holiday morning kind of way. It was stiff, tense, like everyone was walking around trying to pretend nothing had happened but knowing that something had. Maya sat at the kitchen table with a cup of hot chocolate Caleb had made her. She stirred it slowly, humming to herself. Her eyes were brighter than the night before but still tired. I was just about to ask her if she wanted to go for a walk when we heard a knock on the guest room door. It was Margot. She didn't look like herself. The usual poise, the tight smile, the polished perfection, it was gone. She looked smaller, somehow quieter. "Can I come in?" she asked. Caleb didn't answer. I nodded. She stepped in holding a wrapped box, medium-sized, silver paper, no ribbon. She walked over to Maya, bent down beside her chair, and placed it in front of her. I forgot this yesterday, she said. Maya looked at her, then at the box. Her hands didn't move toward it. Margot cleared her throat. I made a mistake. Her voice was low, tired. And I'm sorry. I was wrong. She didn't say it to me. She didn't say it to Caleb. She said it to Maya. I let something in my head convince me that family is just blood. But I forgot that family is love. And you've loved me from the start. More than I deserve. Glanced at me unsure. I gave her a little nod. She carefully unwrapped the gift. Inside was a set of watercolor paints, professional grade. Not the kiddie kind, a fresh sketchbook, and on top a card. She opened it and read quietly. Her lips moved, but I couldn't hear the words. Then she looked at Margot. You want me to draw you something? Margot's eyes filled with tears. I'd like that very much. Maya nodded. Okay. No smile, no dramatic reunion, just a simple okay. But that okay meant everything. After Margot left the room, I turned to Caleb. He didn't look smug. He didn't say, I told you so. He just let out a long breath and sat down beside me. You think it'll last? I asked. He shrugged. I don't know, but it's a start. That night before bed, Maya drew something in her new sketchbook. A little girl holding hands with two taller figures, a man and a woman. Behind them was a house with a tree. And in the sky, she'd drawn a sun with a smiling face. She titled it Home. She showed it to Caleb and he kissed her forehead. That's exactly what we are. A few days later, after we'd driven back home and unpacked our bags, a small envelope arrived in the mail. No return address, just Margot's careful handwriting. Inside was a photo, an old one. Caleb at 5 years old holding his mother's hand. On the back she had written, Family is who you fight for. I see that now. Thank you for fighting for her. I didn't expect a miracle. I still don't. Margot is who she is. Proud, stubborn, raised with a definition of family that never left much room for revision. But she came face to face with a line she couldn't cross without consequence. And Caleb, my quiet, measured husband, drew that line with absolute clarity. He didn't yell. He didn't threaten. He didn't shame her. He just laid down the truth and let her choose who she wanted to be. She chose Maya. And that choice changed everything. Because when someone finally sees your child the way you do, not as someone to tolerate but someone to treasure, the weight you didn't even know you've been carrying finally lifts. That Christmas didn't end with fireworks or music, or some tearful movie moment. It ended with a paintbrush in my daughter's hand and a grandma learning how to become one. That was enough. We didn't talk much on the drive home, not because there was tension but because there was peace. The kind that only comes after something big has passed through and left you standing a little different, a little stronger. Maya fell asleep in the back seat with her sketchbook in her lap. I looked back at her at one point and saw that same drawing. Our family holding hands, now with a tiny new figure added. A woman with silver hair standing just close enough to be part of the picture but not quite at the center. I didn't ask her who it was, I didn't need to. When we got home, life picked up again. School started back, Caleb went back to work, and Maya painted every afternoon at the kitchen table, filling page after page with animals, trees, and little girls who looked a lot like her. One day she drew a picture of a fox sitting at a kitchen table with a teacup. When I asked her about it, she smiled and said, That's Grandma. She's learning. And maybe that's what stuck with me the most. Not that Margot changed overnight. Not that everything magically became perfect, but that Maya gave her space to try. Even after being rejected, even after being made to feel invisible, she opened the door again just a little and let love try one more time. Children forgive in ways adults can't always understand. I still think about that moment in Margot's living room, the sharpness in her voice, the silence that followed, the weight of not standing up when I should have. I think about how many times I told myself that keeping the peace was more important than confronting the pain. But that day taught me something different. Peace without truth isn't peace. It's just pretending. And pretending cost my daughter something she never should have lost, even for a moment. Her sense of belonging, her belief that she mattered to the people she called family. That's not something I'll ever risk again. Since then, things have changed slowly and not always gracefully. Margot calls more often. She asks about Maya's art, sends little cards in the mail, handwritten, sometimes awkward but genuine. The last one said, I'm proud of the way you see the world. You've made mine bigger, and that's enough for now. Not because we've erased the past, but because we're finally honest about it. Because now when Margot shows up, she doesn't just bring gifts. She brings effort. And that means more than anything wrapped in shiny paper. The truth is, I used to think family was about who raised you or who shared your blood or who you married into. But now I know better. Family is who shows up when it's hard. Who looks at you fully and says, "You belong to me." No conditions, no exceptions. And sometimes it takes a line being drawn in the quietest, clearest way for people to finally see what's right in front of them. My husband didn't raise his voice. He raised his daughter. He reminded me that action is love. That silence can be just as loud as cruelty. And that sometimes speaking up doesn't mean yelling. It means standing still and holding the truth in your hands without flinching. And Maya, she reminded me that even after someone hurts you, you can choose grace. Not for them, but for yourself. Because knowing you belong shouldn't be earned. It should be felt. And now Maya feels it, not just from us but even finally from her grandmother. So when people ask me how our Christmas went that year, I tell them it was the year something broke and something better began. It was the year my daughter learned that being loved isn't about being chosen once. It's about being chosen again when it matters most. Thank you for listening to our story. If this reminded you of something you've lived through, or something you're still trying to heal from, just know you're not alone. Families are complicated, but your worth isn't. You don't have to earn your place at the table. And if you're raising a child, biological, adopted, fostered, or otherwise, don't let anyone make them feel like an outsider. Speak up, hold the line, love louder.